Rajiv Chandrashekhar, Member of Parliament of the Rajya Sabha and industrialist in his own right. Rajiv, good morning. A lot has been said about what kind of medium-term implications, economic implications this verdict may have. Are you confident that the government will be able to deliver on such high expectations?
No, I'm not confident about anything, but I think the expectations of this government are pretty clear. I think the expectations are high. And at the end of the day, we will know when things start getting delivered. But one thing is right, and one thing is the truth, which is that this government is clearly unfettered from what was clearly a fettered model in the last 5 years. So there is no reason why they should not be able to move steadily and in some cases swiftly to establish a completely new deal with the people of India.
Would the blueprint of such a plan be visible in the first union budget, Rajiv? Because on that there is a bit of debate that maybe it's too soon to expect a dream budget within 30-40 days. But some believe that there's nothing to dilly-dally about. The first budget should be clear and unambiguous about what the reform path will be from here.
I think, Udayan, look, some of the stuff that's already coming out from Rahul Gandhi and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh are clearly indicating that there is a structural approach to this that this government will take. It's not just about economic reforms, it's also about governance and governance reforms. For example, I heard yesterday on television Rahul Gandhi talk about public spending and the need to reform public spending. So I think my sense is that this is going to be a far more holistic approach and not just a budget-oriented approach, and therefore it may seem to the outside world to be a little gradualist in its approach, but it will be more systematic, deep, and sort of completely rounded. And I think that's what we need. We need a slightly holistic approach to transforming this economy that we have, while at the same time addressing these issues of economic growth in the short term with increased stimuli and so on.
Rajiv, morning. Before the election outcome, the Prime Minister actually did promise to turn things around in his 100-day plan. Within that period, do you think the focus will remain what you just outlined, public spending and increasing public investment?
I think so. I think, look, I'm not privy to their internal thinking, but my instinct tells me that yes, he and the government will try and reverse the sentiment, the negative sentiment and the risk aversion that has arisen as a consequence of that. He will have to address that in the first 100 days. The larger issues of, whether it's disinvestment or, reforms of the public spending structure, those will take a longer term to roll out and implement. But he will send out the signals, and he will need to send out the signals that this is clearly a deep, rounded off approach to transforming government, transforming and improving the economy. He will have to send that signal out in the first 100 days, but how much he will exactly execute in the 100 days, we will see.
What about...
We will need to be reasonable at least about that.
Yes, today we are exuberant. Over the next few weeks we will have to be reasonable. What about telecom, Rajiv? What do you think will get covered there by way of ground? That should be relatively simple to do, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think telecom is, it's a no-brainer. I think people need to just basically address the issue of how to auction spectrum. The whole issue of regulation of the telecom sector is what we need. And the exact competitive model that we want there to create a sustainable competitive model for consumers. So it's regulation. I think the TRA Act will need to get amended to give the regulator more teeth, more powers. We will need to create, move away from all these negotiated spectrum deals to a far more transparent and open way of auctioning spectrum, which will in turn, throw up money for the government and its fiscal situation. So the solutions are very simple. There hasn't been the political, let's say, the stomach to do it, and I suspect that this time around there will be a far more focus on transparency and doing it the right way.
In terms of bridging the fiscal deficit, Rajiv, even before they can move on disinvestment, do you think the 3G auctions can happen fairly swiftly?
I think, look, given that the Western economies and the appetite in the Western economies is returning, and albeit slowly and gradually, this is not a bad time to start planning the 3G auctions. Maybe for the auctions to happen in third quarter 09-10 or at least second quarter, end of second quarter. That's not a bad time for us to do it, and I think it will happen. Like I said, the issue is not so much the auction but the model of the auction and how much money the government will realize and how transparent the process will be. The issue in telecom has always been the process. It's never been the end objective.
What would industry be happier with, Rajeev? Old, time-tested finance minister like Pranab Mukherjee, or an economist technocrat like Montek Singh Ahluwalia to drive the kind of reforms that everybody is expecting?
Look, I don't personally subscribe to this individual A or B kind of thing. I think what we need is big ideas. We need to demonstrate that we have the capability to come up with these new ways of looking at problems and coming up with newer and more innovative solutions. So, I have worked with Pranab Mukherjee in the past, and I have seen that he is, while he may be an older gentleman, he is also open to new, interesting ways of looking at issues. I haven't worked that closely with Montek, so, from what I hear, he's as open to new ideas. So, I don't think it's so much about A or B as much as the government sending a signal, whether it's the finance ministry or the telecom ministry or the road ministry or the other ministries, economic ministries, that we want to look at India, with a completely new set of eyes and vision, and that's what is required. If that signal comes down from the Prime Minister, you will have all ministers really falling in line and looking at these things very, very differently.
Just one word, Rajeev, for India Inc. Would you be cautious about whether or not there would be very stringent tax reforms? Because it's happened in the developed world. Could it get very top-heavy and open up the base for the Aam Aadmi, so to speak?
I don't know, but I know that Mr. Chidambaram and Mr. Pranab Mukherjee and the Prime Minister in their earlier avatar in the earlier government have spoken about reforming the tax code, reforming the tax structure, widening the tax base, and so on and so forth. Now, there is very little out there in the public domain in terms of what they meant by that, in terms of real tax policies and taxation approaches. But I suspect that there will be a move to broaden the base and maybe in the short term hit the corporate sector with some additional taxation. May not be immediate, but as we see signs of the growth taking off and the trend of decline, moderating, maybe there is at the right time when the government says the fiscal deficit is no longer manageable and we need to raise resources. If disinvestment and other options are not immediately available to them, they may look at this. But, like I said, I'm not an insider to this, and I'm talking on the top of my hat, as most people are.
Thanks, Rajeev, very much for taking time out for us today. That's Rajeev Chandrashekhar with his expectations. He says he's not the insider, he can only expect. Let's hear out an insider. P. Chidambaram, Home